Welcome to the Caribbean Sea Fan Festival online in celebration of UN World Oceans Day, June 8, 2017, where we explore the life and times of the Caribbean Sea and hear stories from a few of the people working to ensure the sustainable health and wealth of the sea. Stay tuned for information, education, and inspirational stories brought to you by the Sustainable Caribbean Sea Initiative, curated by Dr. Claire Nelson. Life needs the Caribbean Sea.
What does climate change have to do with the Caribbean blue economy? Well, studies have shown that sea level rise has occurred at a rate of about 2 to 4 centimeters per decade over the past 33 years, a trend which represents risks to the region's freshwater resources and to its largely coastal population dependent on tourism. So, in terms of the threat of climate change to the Caribbean, the cost of inaction is high. The impact on the Caribbean Sea and the blue economy? Well, let's find out more by talking to GERARD, Climate Change Senior Specialist at the Inter-American Development Bank in Washington, D.C. Stay tuned. Greetings and welcome to the Caribbean Sea Fan Festival, and on this edition, 2017, we are focusing our conversation on the blue economy. It is World Ocean Day, and as we say, the ocean is our future. And for the Caribbean region, the Caribbean Sea is paramount, as so much of our economy is based on what the sea offers in terms of services. A World Bank study recently said that the Caribbean Sea economy is estimated at US $53 billion annually. I wish I could see even 0.0001% of that in my bank account. But for most people in the Caribbean region, they're hardly aware of the critical importance of the Caribbean Sea. And so this conversation that we've been having for the last 4 years, the Caribbean Sea Fan Festival, is to help educate and make more popular the importance of the Caribbean Sea. For us in the Caribbean Sea, the sea is just out there somewhere. So you see on camera with me this morning GERARD, He is a climate change specialist at the Inter-American Development Bank, which is the largest development finance institution funding the Caribbean region, as in we actually spend more money from the IDB to the Caribbean region than the World Bank to the Caribbean region. So most people also don't know that. Now, my understanding is that Mr. Mr. GERARD, has been doing some very interesting work related to the blue economy, so I'm going to jump right in. GERARD, what for you, working as a climate change specialist, is the blue economy?
Well, thank you very much for having me here, Claire. I think this is a critical issue for the Caribbean. You rightly indicated that they are Caribbean islands, meaning we are surrounded by water. And for us within the region, this is something that we don't think about often, except for when we go down to the beach. But if you think about it, most of our resources, you look at the Bahamas especially, it's water. And I don't think we have had that sense of the sort of exploitation or sustainability or utilization of this resource. We think of it mainly for waste disposal. But
unfortunately, no. Right there, you just put me to shock and horror. In fact, I would not consider myself an environmentalist, and my whole interest in this issue was because of the waste disposal conversation. I had no idea that the ocean was the lungs of the planet. I had no idea. We were not taught that. And I got shocked and horror one day. I went to the beach and I saw all the styrofoam. So continue with the waste disposal. No, sorry.
But I think we do not realize this is a resource. We think more of our resources as land-based.
Yes.
And I think there has to be this paradigm shift in our thinking that our resources, our principal resources, our primary resources are ocean-based. You're surrounded by water. And therefore, one has to rethink how when you think about your revenue stream, when you think about your economic activity, and when I say economic activity, I do not only mean fishing. It goes beyond that, and I think that's what the blue economy is trying to develop. That
make more visible, right? Because I did it once. So let's look at it from different layers, from the beach out. So there's the tourism, coastal system that without the beach you wouldn't have. And the people who like say do water scooting and parasailing and then there is the actual yacht sailing, and then there's the cruise shipping, that's the stuff on top of the sea, right? And then we have like the scuba diving, that's the kind of under the sea. And then the fishing to eat, right?
Yes, of course.
And then there's the lobstering.
Yeah, you have all the what we call the fish, crustaceans, all those typical resources. But then you have minerals.
Yeah.
And then you have
for Trinidad, like oil.
Yeah, mineral oil and other heavy metals that
really
basically do have a value.
We do have heavy metals in the Caribbean seabed.
Well, it's something that one needs to explore, and there is a potential. But again, it's what we do not know. We know more about often what's on land than what's under the sea.
Yes.
We may know basically what may be close to the shore, but going out, we don't know. And it's because, again, our thinking has been land-based and not ocean-based. Or it's been limited to those things that you just mentioned, what we get in terms of the fish, in terms of tourism, the beaches, etc. But we do not think that there are other resources. You think about biotechnology, that in terms of prospecting for new biotech technologies within that are marine based, and that would lead to greater innovation. These are the things that when you're thinking about future economic activities, these are the things that we need to start developing to have the skill sets to be able to utilize those opportunities, to utilize those resources. And so it is this what I'm hoping for, especially when you're talking to island countries, that it is to look at the oceans not simply as for transportation, just simply for recreation, but there are significant resources. And the fact that you are surrounded by oceans, that even in terms of our education, when we think about, you spoke about fisheries, you have the issues of mariculture. How many islands are there that are developing skill sets to utilize or to develop their mariculture economies? We don't. They're very limited. We look more towards agriculture.
Yes.
And yes, but part of food security also involves fisheries, the fisheries component, and need to have a better handle on that if we are going to develop sustainably.
So as we think about this situation, and you gave a nice broad brush about it, what aspect would you say? Because, for example, I grew up in the Caribbean, went to high school in the Caribbean, but I don't remember learning anything about this.
Yeah.
So let's start with the let's say the general awareness, as you said, we don't know. How is that changing in terms of government? How is the IDB and other agencies working to change that in government to of what people are able to understand?
I think climate change is shifting or causing us to make that shift. Because we are looking at the impacts of climate change. Yeah? And when you're thinking about, especially with island states, many are either low-lying or their cities are on the coast within low elevated areas. And the projections in terms of sea level rise is creating this new way of thinking and looking at the sustainability of our infrastructure. So it's coming up on us, I think, as you're seeing the impacts beginning to become a trend. And there's a shifting now in having a greater awareness of how we build, how we do activities, how we manage our coastal ecosystems, like our mangroves, our seagrasses, our cories. So I think it's what is creating this sort of shift is this sort of sensitization or awareness of the impacts of climate change. All Caribbean countries are undertaking measures related to adapting to the impacts of climate change. So it's creating a new sort of dialogue or discourse within the public forum. And what we need to do is to enhance that dialogue, improve on it. And I think certainly when we look at, let's start with the children. We have to start with our young people. Because at the end of the day, they're the ones who are going to inherit this. For many of us who are a little older than they are, it may be too late for us. But they're the ones who are, we have to think 10, 20, 30 years old. This is all the whole line about sustainability. It's not just simply the sustainability of our economies, but the sustainability of our social fabric. And that relates to our future generations. And if we can get them to embrace this and to basically embed it into their psyche and be able to, that they start thinking, how young people are, especially in terms of use of technology. They start thinking about new ways of utilizing technology and developing new approaches. I think is critical. And so, there has to be a greater push to develop this psyche within our young people.
So does that mean that, because when I last year I had the opportunity to interview some people from the Caribbean Youth Environment Network, and I do want to do so again this year. I've been talking to their coordinator, Mr. Burke in Barbados. And this is important because one of the Sustainable Development Goals, Ocean Goal SDG 2014, speaks to that the goal by 2030 increase the economic benefits to small island development states from the sustainable use of marine resources, including through, and I notice that including through, sustainable management of fisheries, aquaculture, and tourism. So as you talk about mariculture and the need to have a paradigm shift, we also therefore need to have an ecosystem in the region that allows a greater number of people to take up the whole entire spectrum of knowledge, career, training, education relevant. So whether it be marine biology, marine geology, mariculture, geospatial mapping, is the IDB, in terms of your work, how are you able to influence the people, let's say, in the education sector, lending departments, to include some of these new ideas to help the countries ramp up to do this work?
Well, before I get to that, I think you mentioned a very critical term there, ecosystems.
Yeah.
And for sustainability of islands, it has to have an ecosystem approach. And
Yes.
when I mean ecosystem, that's what you're talking about. The interrelated connections between
Yes,
the
everything.
various activities, practices within this unit called an island. And, we want to get away from, or we need to get away from the sort of silo approach.
Yes.
That you have tourism, you have agriculture, you have energy, you have water.
Yes.
No, when you think about it, water impacts agriculture, water impacts energy impacts, and so to deal with this issue of our sustainability and going forward and decision making, it has to be at this ecosystem level, at this understanding that is a system that you're dealing with that is interconnected.
Yes.
In this regard, what we are trying to do at the IDB is, especially with our island states, to bring this sort of ecosystem approach, this sort of interconnected approach to the needs of our countries, so that now there's a greater emphasis on intercoordination between our sectors. So even if you talk about your education sector within the bank, now we are in terms of climate change and even infrastructure, we are all talking to each other in order to and come up with a solution that's an integrated solution.
Yes.
Because this is what needed.
Back to the future, actually, because many years ago when I first started doing development banking, when I was a young Turk and I could actually do modeling, one of the models I was working on was an integrated rural development model. And so this whole idea of integrated marine modeling for governance, the issue of data integration, is a huge issue. In fact, one of the things that we're trying to work on is a proposal to bring together the different sectors that have data to see how we can have a data inter-mapping conversation, because most of us can't see the sea as a whole picture. You know, you're seeing the reefs, you're seeing the coastal zone, you're seeing the fish, but how do you map that? But the technology now allows us to do that, doesn't it?
Yeah, of course. You hear about big data and that, but this whole, again, a really critical point you just made again is data. When we look at it continues to be a problem within the region, that either the data is not sufficient, it's not available, and we need to get a better handle. We need to do a better way of accessing data, collecting data, analyzing data.
But it's very expensive. I mean, how can poor countries afford it? I have a question to ask in that, because I know that we don't have a long time, and I do want to get to this question, because as you mentioned it, I remember this, that as a organization with so much convenient power, you have the opportunity to help us with the problem of the cost of data.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, how can we get the private sector, all those ships that are plying back and forth? Because the Caribbean governments don't have any research ships, right? How can we find a partnership then between the private sector ships that are going back and forth across the Caribbean Sea all the time and the needs that governments have and agencies and institutions have, the various regional governance bodies have for data? Is there a way that this can be brought into the bank's work?
I think I have a good example of that. We recently, in November, helped the university as part of one of our projects on climate change. We had installed a supercomputer. The guys at the University of West Indies, Mona, Jamaica, in the physics department, basically their term for it was a game changer, meaning that it allowed them to improve their modeling capacity with regard to climate change from months to days.
Wow.
And so I was like, you really? He said yes. And the sort of partnership, and at the time when we designed it and started to do the implementation, it was a simple, here is a product, here is a technology, sort of normal. interestingly, Dell, that was, they are the ones who provided the system, got really interested in this because they saw that the importance of this increased capacity. And now they're developing, at the time they were developing a case study because here was, this significant increase in capacity, the opportunities of doing modeling, of interacting with the private sector too, because now services that they would be interested in, or the data that they would be interested, or information that they would be interested in, now they had access to it. And now, so those sort of partnerships, I think is the way to go. That you are seeing, and it's basically making the data that you have relevant to the private sector, so that they will support it. They'll say, this will improve the way I do my business, because that's what you need. They will gravitate to something that improves the business or ensures that there's business continuity.
But they also have responsibilities now on a MARPOL, the whole issue of pollution, and we don't have the resources as governments in the countries to be monitoring these things. So I just said the partnership has to go also in a mind shift of the private sector. They say, look, if you kill off these countries, we won't be able to buy anything anyway. So no point in having ships going back and forth on a dead sea.
Yeah, I think that's one example. But again, it is the whole idea of demonstrating the value. And it's what in order to get the private sector, and the private sector has been involved in many things, and I think there's been this shift of understanding that the resources that they depend on need to be sustained, need to be maintained, need to be to ensure their business continuity. And part of, I think, what is also happening is the impact of climate change is making a game changer. So now you have, especially, I can take the agricultural sector, you have private sector entities, and let's call them farmers, now implementing new practices because they're seeing the changes. And a lot of those practices are being developed or from research institutions like CARDI, the Caribbean Agricultural Research Development Institute. So it is this, and that's being supported by government. So it is this sort of coming together of common interests. And it has to be encouraged. And as we are seeing, one of the ways is translating the information that's being, the data and information that's being gathered into useful information, useful inputs for the private sector, so that they will support it. And because they will see that it's not for them or just a one way, because they realize, okay, I can see where this is useful. Encourage it.
Yeah, exactly. And support it. As we think about, we're getting ready to wrap up, as we think about then the role of the bank that is providing resources, whether it's grants or loan financing across so many sectors, you have what I call a transversal role, because, climate is everything. In this case, everything is everything. Your work, the outcome of your work will impact on the agricultural sector, will impact on the coastal zone, will impact on the tourism sector. So let us jump to 2030 and think about yourself 13 years from now, retired, sitting back, drinking a rum and coke somewhere. What would you want to say has happened, has been accomplished because of some of the programs you're putting in place now at the bank?
I would want to, personally, I want to see whether an island state or an island. There's a distinction. You think about countries that actually have islands off of them. In places like Haiti. There's so I would want to see an island state that has a thriving blue economy. That means that the economic activity is basically in balance with the ocean systems.
Yes.
And those ocean systems, even though they're being utilized,
yes,
are healthy and resilient.
So I'm going to repeat that because I want to use it as my mantra for some of the work we'll be doing. We want to have thriving systems that are in balance.
Yeah.
Which means that they are, what's the word you use? Sustainable? No.
Well,
they're in balance because they're resilient. They can
carrying capacity.
Right, the carrying capacity is in balance. So what we're using and taking away and where we're using is in a way that it's regenerating and resilient.
Right. Yeah.
All right. So we have it. So there's some words we have to get into our lexicon, into the common usage. And as I say, we have to get the taxi drivers in the Caribbean region talking about this. If we get the bus conductors and the taxi drivers talking about these issues, half of our work is done.
No, of course, no.
And it sounds counterintuitive, but think about it this way. Most of the average person in the region is taking a bus or a taxi to get around, a road taxi, whether you're in Trinidad or Jamaica or Barbados. And if we can, and they're known to be, many of them are natural storytellers, raconteurs, you know. So if we can have like a taxi and bus driver training program, it may actually go further than have just talking about we're going to train just the teachers. No, let's train the taxis and the bus drivers too, no?
And I think, you know, when you look at the rich culture of the Caribbean, you know, you think of calypso and reggae and zouk.
Yes.
One of the things that, you know, we are natural storytellers, as I say, and I think we need to use more of that, and you are seeing it. There are very good examples of songs coming out of Jamaica, of Grenada, and other places. That speaks about climate change, and it's getting to, you know, and it's these are the sort of things that we need to utilize
to get the message over. Yes,
this is who we are. This is who. This is our medium of communication.
Yes,
and it's an effective medium.
And we need to use it to move forward. It's critical.
We need to use it a lot more, and I think it gets a lot more attention.
IDB is talking about creative capital as well. So I hope that in the next year or so we'll see more cross-fertilization of the programs you're doing with the programs around creative capital and with the youth, especially working with the people at the Caribbean Youth Environment Network to get this done.
Let me make one final plug in that regard.
Yes.
We're doing a very interesting program in Tobago.
Yes.
Dealing with climate change, the preservation of the reef, with Peter Mitchell.
Let me just say, for those who don't know, Peter Mitchell is the premier, the world-class premier designer of large-scale spectacle. Not only he is a master of the Trinidad Carnival spectacle, he has been designing Olympic spectacles. So, you know, that's the kind of...
And we'll be putting, as part of the program, and this will be Copper Foundation in Trinidad, two sculptures, the one in the Bucco Reef, well, near to it area, in an attempt to basically take some pressure off the reef, because you have a new site, and on that, so that we need to take some of the sort of visitor pressure of the reef. You know, it's when we think about climate change impacting that reef, there are some issues there that also need to be addressed. So this one way, you know, you're talking about creative capital, to utilize our creative capital to address an issue that is prominent within the region.
So one final question. We have 15 seconds. If you could tell me and begin the sentence this way: my life needs the Caribbean Sea because...
My life... Could you repeat that? Sorry?
My life needs the Caribbean Sea because...
Because I am a product of the Caribbean Sea.
Oh, okay, thank you so much. Folks, we have been having a conversation with GERARD ALLENG, who is a climate change specialist, at the Inter-American Development Bank. He works across the entire Caribbean region, or Caribbean Basin region. And so we're talking about 36 countries and territories that are the owners of the Caribbean Sea. So smooth sailing, and I hope you have no storm clouds in your future. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us for this segment of the Caribbean Sea Fan Festival Online 2017. The festival is a virtual cruise around the Caribbean to hear stories about the life and times of the Caribbean Sea from people who love and care for the sea. The Caribbean Sea Fan Festival Online is a production of the Institute of Caribbean Studies in Washington, D.C. For more information, visit www.thecaribbeansea.org. Share this story and see more. Remember, life needs the Caribbean Sea.